Servus. No time to waste here. It's the holidays. Let's jump right in because it is holiday gift guide time with your host Matthias Eichler. Here are a few more of my favorite things. I love the Sea to Summit dry sacks. Bags that can hold everything from your electronics when traveling to a full drop bag restock for your 8-station visit. They're watertight and inexpensive and come in cool colors. I love them. I have lots of them. Go get some. Next up, the orange mud transition wrap. It's a towel plus. For when you come down the trail all muddy and sweaty and gross, clean yourself off before getting back into the car. The towel that does it all. Remember the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Yes, towels are vital. Next up, Opinel knives. I've got half a dozen or so floating around the house, different sizes, different shapes. These knives open packages, cut rope and cheese, and are beautifully made in France, just on the doorsteps of the Alps. Links to all the gear are, as always, at singletrack.fm/gear. And here's my guest for the week, Elisa Laverty. Well, I don't know. You can always blame the weather, which I feel like in December, with it being so dark and gloomy and damp and stuff, I always feel like it's fair to blame the weather.
Yeah. And it just, this time of year always feels like such a natural progression for an off season for me, just because I'm like so busy all throughout the summer and fall, and it's just like, oh, my body is ready for a break. And that's, other than my event, which will be coming up soon, I'm like planning on taking a relatively significant break in December.
You're speaking of off season, but you are just coming back home from crushing a race as if you didn't have an off season, or was that your final hooray before the big off season?
I guess so. That's kind of how I was treating it. I guess I was also kind of looking at it as just going and doing it for fun.
You came in second. Yeah. You didn't just do it for fun. You came in second. You crushed it.
Thanks. Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, I just was playing it by ear, I guess, and just going to see how I felt, going into it. Well, I should preface this by saying that last winter I dealt with an injury that took me out for several months, and over the course of 2021, I feel like I was just kind of methodically and trying to gradually build back my mileage and trying to train a little bit more smart, I guess.
Yeah.
Just so that I could, set myself up for success. I could get through this year injury free, enjoy my adventures, and then go into this next year, hopefully feeling good. But what was weird is that I kind of had a couple of little things flare up, that were very similar to my injury that I dealt with. So going into that 50K, I wasn't sure how my body would feel and respond to the distance and, just the effort. So I'm really grateful that more or less held together. Everything seemed to be just fine. And, the usual aches and pains that you experience at the end of an ultra, were present, but I didn't let that prevent me from, trying to finish strong and, just getting to that finish line.
Fantastic. So you ran, for listeners who are not glued to your Strava and everything else, you ran the Cape Mountain 50K. That was down in Florence, Oregon, by Daybreak Racing. And your husband ran a shorter distance, or did he run the same distance?
Keith ran the 25K the next day. So the 50K was on Saturday and the 25K was on Sunday.
It's kind of fun. You're juggling your son that way, right? You go down to a race weekend and you let your spouse partner run one day and then you run the next day. It works actually pretty well that way.
It did work out pretty well, and it's funny. It's not the first time we've done a race weekend together. I remember, I think it was 2019. I raced the Elk Kings 25K on Saturday. And then later that day, we drove down the Oregon coast. So that race is in the Tillamook State Forest, put on by Go Beyond Racing. And then the next day on Saturday after I finished my race, we drove down the coast so that the next day Keith could race the Rain Shadow Running Oregon Coast 30K on Sunday.
Nice. Nice.
So it's fun. It's fun doing that.
I guess
worked out well.
I guess that's a good reminder for race directors who put on races to not all put them on Saturdays, to also think about Sundays. It gives the option of a little bit more flexibility,
it's nice.
Right?
It's really nice. Yeah. Really nice being able to do that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that before. Even though I've done it myself up at Squamish, I've ran the 50 mile on one day and then had Trixie, my wife, ran at 23K the next day, which works out really well.
Nice.
If, the whole family is into running and the kids are good and stuff. I've been looking at it this year, and I was thinking, our kids are old enough. Could we leave them by themselves in the hotel room for a day while we both run? I don't know if we're quite there yet, but... Yeah. Or we would be there, but I don't know if it would be fair to them. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I think, something race directors, I don't know if it's worth their time and energy, but, Luke was disappointed that there wasn't like a kids race. Some Rain Shadow events have had like a 1K kids race or something. And Luke was running all over the place, around the start and finish line. And I think it would have been fun for him to have like a little race to participate in.
No, for sure. I think we're all a little bit skittish about COVID still, as we're trying to put on sort of, I think the racing exists again, but the community aspect, I think we're all still feeling a little bit weird about this.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Yeah, and so I think, at least that's how I feel, both as a race director myself, but also as sort of a participant, that I feel like, how much do I want to mingle and gather? Hopefully by next summer we'll be in a better place. Yeah, hopefully. Well, let's speak about race directing, and that is something super exciting because you have a sort of a very casual event to announce. I want to hear all about that.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say that, I've been really inspired by other race directors in the community and the events that they've been putting on, and over the years, kind of just gathering little bits of inspiration from the way that other RDs have put on their events. And it's always kind of been a dream of mine to host my own event. I've definitely had all of these ideas, but haven't necessarily taken action to actually throw an event. So put on an event. So last year I participated in a virtual race that was it was like a vertical gain challenge. So just go out and log as much vertical gain in one effort as possible. And so I went out to Mount Walker on my own and completed 9 laps of the mountain. It's 1.7 miles from trailhead to summit. So I would go up and down, up and down. So I logged 18,000 feet of vert, and I really enjoyed it. I don't know what it was about it, but for some reason I just have this pull and draw to that little mountain. It's honestly a great place to get in some solid training, and in general, that mountain, it was kind of one of the first trails that I had run, and where I kind of first felt inspired to become a stronger athlete, kind of up my competitive edge. I don't know. I was just I had all these big dreams. When I kind of first got into trail running, I was like, oh, I'm going to be this badass, strong trail runner, and I'm going to use this local mountain to get myself really fit and strong. And so just over the years,
you make it sound like you didn't achieve that. Number one, you're still young, and number two, how did you not achieve that?
Oh, it's true. Well, I mean, I'm working on it. It's, I'm just getting started.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. So anyway, so this mountain is just always kind of held a special place
Yeah.
in my heart. Put in a lot of miles, logged a lot of vert. And so anyway, yeah, after I did that, it was like March or late March when I did that, kind of like right after COVID just kind of exploded. And then later in the year, around the winter solstice, I thought, hey, it might be fun to get a group of, small group, I guess at that time, trying to keep it safe. Just get a small group of local folks together. And I had probably 7 or 8 people show up, and I was just thrilled that others wanted to come out and run with me. So, yeah, I thought that was super cool. And so I wanted to do it again this year, but kind of up the ante just a little bit, kind of make it more of like a fat ass style event. But I'm going to be, it's free of charge to participants. I'm going to be arranging to have like a porta potty because there's no facilities by the trailhead. I'm going to set up like a little aid station, and yeah, I'm just excited to see who comes out. It should be a lot of fun.
Amazing. I love that you put this on. Quickly, practically, Mount Walker is a really weird little hill because it's the only mountain that is on the northeastern side of 101 in the Olympics, right? It's on the Olympic Peninsula up towards Port Townsend, but essentially the entire Olympic Mountains are all, as you're driving north, on the left side of you, all on the interior, but Mount Walker sits actually on the exterior. I've only been up there.
Yeah.
I've only been up there once, but it is a really cool place. Sort of a little bit out of the way for me here, but it's
really close to Quilcene. The
yes,
Quilcene on 101.
Exactly, close to Quilcene. So it's a little bit out there, but you are putting on a casual fat ass race and give people the dates and times.
Yes.
So we have sort of the parameters kind of out there so people can check their calendars.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be on December 18th, which is a Saturday, and it starts at 7 a.m. I actually had somebody volunteer to come out and take pictures as well, so I'm really excited about that. I'm also having like kind of a loose 12-hour cutoff. You can come and run / hike as many laps as you'd like. But if there's anyone that wants to go further, maybe there are folks that, aren't going to do a ton of laps. But I'll also have a few prizes for like the top 2 male, top 2 females that logged the most vert on Mount Walker on that day.
Amazing. It's a fun challenge for winter solstice. You don't know what the weather is going to be like. You could be having snow on top. How is the trail? You say it's a good training trail. Is it fairly easy to run? You've got the vert no matter what, but explain the trail a little bit.
So yeah, the trail. So the vertical gain that you get on this trail going from bottom to top is right about 2,000 feet of elevation gain. So most of your challenge is found in just the gradient of the trail. So yeah, the trail isn't like crazy technical. I've noticed over the years that some of the roots and rocks have become a bit more exposed just because of, increased usage of the trail. Most trails around here these days. But overall, it's really not too technical, and it's got some pretty pleasant switchbacks on the way up. There is like a little spot. There are actually a couple of spots I've noticed where you feel like you're almost there. It's like, oh, I swear the summit is just on the other end of this switchback, and then you're like, darn, there's still a few more. But overall, I love it. There's just something really special about this trail to me. And And I know that there are others who feel the same way. It's kind of cool. Several times when I've been out training on Mount Walker, I met this gentleman who lives just over in Port Ludlow, and he looks like he's got to be in his 60s. I hope I'm not like too inaccurate, but he said he goes out there 2 or 3 times a week and logs 2 to 3 laps. And I was just like, what?
Yeah.
You're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was really impressed, and it was really cool meeting him. And I kind of want to find a way to reach out to him to see if he wants to come out on the winter solstice event. So yeah, it'd be cool to see him out there. There are other local legends.
Yeah, exactly. That's amazing. I always love these people because it's such a commitment. You get to know the trail year round and in all kinds of different ways, and it doesn't get boring, but it is a commitment that means while you're constantly on the same hill, you don't get to see other areas, right? You know one place very intimately, but you don't know a lot of other stuff. That's super cool.
Right. Yeah.
Me personally, I'm curious. I don't know if any listeners care, but how was it in terms of permits and stuff like that? Was it pretty chill to be able to get something like that off the ground for you on that side?
Yeah, so I reached out to the Forest Service, the Quilcene Ranger Station in particular, and because I'm not charging anyone to do this event, and because it's less than like 70 participants, at least I don't think I'm going to have. I think it's going to be more like in the 20 to 30 participant range. It's going to be pretty small. But since it's under 70 and I'm not charging anyone, they said that I don't need a permit.
Oh,
so, so usually there's a gate at the bottom of the road for Mount Walker. So you can drive to the top, and I think just in the wintertime, they usually lock the gate that's right off of 101. And I think they also mentioned something about there's a nearby landowner that I don't know what the story is going on there, but so they lock the gate in the winter, and the trailhead is just a quarter of a mile up the road from that gate. So I'm trying to see if I can possibly get a key so that I can unlock that gate and everyone can just park up the road just a bit. But, it's not the end of the world if we have to jog or walk, a quarter of a mile up the road.
Yeah, that's great.
So we'll see that.
I love it. I think these kind of, especially in the winter, these kind of community events that are spontaneous and fun. I think they're a great way of staying motivated. You were just talking about being in an off season. I've sort of felt like I'm in an off season all fall long, and I'm desperately trying to figure out if I can get motivated again to actually get back out and do something more serious rather than just trying to catch some fresh air. So fantastic, love it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of that, sometimes when I don't have the motivation to go do something, sometimes I just have to find something or maybe even just see what comes along that excites me to kind of get motivated or, back into it again. So yeah, I'm hoping that others find this. I'm pretty sure there are some others that are going to be kind of excited about this, and they're looking forward to just getting out and meeting some other local trail runners. And I've always just loved going to events that have that community feel. You kind of see the same faces over again, and it's just a lot of fun that way. Yeah,
no, for sure. Absolutely. Great. This sounds fantastic. Solstice run and a vertical challenge. I mean, vertical challenge is always fun. It allows you to get an achievement in that doesn't just look at miles or time, which I think us as trail runners, we love. Not just an extra data point, but it is. And Mount Walker, if you get a good day, has some nice views on top. So it's actually rewarding too. So great.
Totally.
Fantastic. So this is like super fat ass, but let's say we're talking about motivation. What would be your dream race to run? Like I know you've been dealing with some injuries back and forth and stuff, but it is sort of the end of the year, and people look at the new year as laying out their race calendar. If somebody would give you, I don't know, ultra sign up credits or something, where you're like, okay, without worrying about logistics, your husband races too, family and realities. What would be some of the races that you like? Either you've run them before and you're like, I have to run them absolutely again because I love them so much, or bucket list type stuff.
Wow, that's a great question. Well, I think the one that's calling to me the most is honestly Hard Rock 100 miler. I've actually never been to Colorado. I'm hoping maybe this next year we can plan a trip out there to do some races. I haven't done a 100 miler yet, which I honestly haven't been in a huge hurry to do one. I know that I'll do one at some point, but I just haven't been rushing to jump into doing one. But if I had the opportunity to do Hard Rock next year, I would 100% train for it and do it. Races that are really challenging and burly and just, forces you to really dig deep and get through the nitty gritty. Those are the types of races that I actually really enjoy. I did a similar race earlier this year, the Needles 50K. Mm-hmm. Dude, that race was so hard. So hard. It lives up to the hype of how challenging it is. I mean, I have to say, it was like 70% power hiking and all the rest, just hardly any running at all.
Describe the challenge. I've not run that race. I've heard of it, but describe what is challenging. Because there's some races there, the terrain. I felt like down at Zion, I really struggled with the rock hard, like concrete almost type surface of that clay desert baked. That really bothered my feet, right? And then you've got altitude, or you've got super challenging terrain. I think Squamish, those mountain bike trails are just so challenging to run, even all the way towards the end, right? And so I think that there are certain races that are challenging for particular reasons. I think Hard Rock, you'll deal, obviously with all of them combined, but big one is obviously the altitude, that you're above 12, 13, 14,000 feet so much. So what makes Needles for you so challenging? What is it, in your opinion?
Well, also, I have to say that I think coming off of the injury in the winter and then in the springtime, I really wasn't doing a lot of bigger runs. Going into Needles, I guess, I think the longest run I had done was probably 18 or 19 miles. So I can't say I was particularly trained up to do Needles, so maybe that's what made it feel so hard. Honestly, it was a warm day, and some sections of the trail are pretty loose and steep. It was really dry and very warm the day I did it. But I feel like I did a pretty good job at staying hydrated and fueling well. But I don't know. I just felt like I was chasing down my friend, Kirsten, who basically led wire to wire. She totally crushed the race that day. And, I ended up getting third place. So I basically was in third for the entire day. It was like Kirsten led wire to wire, second place, stayed in second all day. So I was just trying to chase those two down. I just never felt like, I couldn't catch them. I was like, oh my God, this is so hard. And I don't feel like I can go any faster because it was just tough terrain. I mean, it was really steep. There was, it's almost 10,000 feet of vert for that course. So, it was just a challenge. So,
Amazing. Well, I mean, you picked Hard Rock, which is obviously a challenge because given how lots of people try to get in and never get in, you'll never get into that race, right?
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of a bummer. But I like this question because I think there are certain marquee races that people are talking about. I was just coming off a podcast where I talked in German with somebody in Germany, and we were talking about the racing landscape in Europe and how sort of very different it is, and it's just fascinating to see what people enjoy when they like racing and stuff. So I like it. So then, looking in the past, what has been one of your favorite races that you've ever run?
Oh man.
I know, right?
Let's see. That's kind of a tough one.
I mean, it doesn't have to be qualitative, your absolute favorite one, right? But it could be one that really stands out. That was a,
there's one that comes to mind almost immediately. That was a really special race, and the last year that they had it, because the course, some of the course got destroyed because of wildfires, and that would be the Gorge Waterfalls 50K. Mm-hmm. That ended up being a really good race for me, and kind of, I feel really lucky that I was able to get into it and do it. It's funny, I had like this, race credit that I didn't use, and somehow I think I had reached out to Rain Shadow and, was able to use it maybe a little bit after, I was supposed to use it within a certain year, and then I was pregnant with Luke, and then I ended up doing that race at I was 3 months postpartum. I can't believe that I did that, and I feel really lucky that I was able to get in and complete it, and it was just such a beautiful, beautiful course, and that was actually Keith's first ultra win and his first ultra race that he competed in, and so and I love the gorge. It's just so beautiful, and all those waterfalls, and it was just a really great day.
having this race off the calendar, that does tear a big hole into the Pacific Northwest race calendar, right? It was fair. It was high profile. It was a 100K option as well. It was a really beautiful location.
And then a golden ticket. The 100K was a golden ticket as
well.
So
exactly.
It was
a golden ticket
loss
for Western and stuff. So it's been a big hole and hasn't really been sort of filled here in the Pacific Northwest, right? I mean, we've certainly seen lots of races pop up, but nothing really. What's your favorite distance to race?
I do really enjoy racing 50K. I mean, I've only done one 50 miler, though I guess a couple of the FKTs that I did last year were in the mid 40 mile range. But I really do enjoy 50K and even shorter distance too, like doing a 25K trail race seems to be a sweet spot as well. I enjoy trying to work on speed and, as well as just, the endurance factor of the longer races.
Yeah.
So
it is interesting.
I try not to limit myself. I kind of I enjoy doing different distances, even road races as well. I feel like it's really good for your training. It's conducive. It helps a lot, going from short and fast to the long stuff as well.
For sure. It is interesting though, because in some respects our community only really respects the ultra distance, right? Everybody sort of looks up at the 100 miler and makes that sort of their main trophy to catch. But there's so many cool courses and routes that and races for that matter that are sort of on the shorter level where you get the full experience, and they don't necessarily have to just be build up and training races. They can be sort of the end all, right?
Yeah, and just go out and do them for fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like the Capital Peak races that are coming up. I love doing those Capital State Forest trail races.
Yeah.
like the one that's coming up in January. I think I'm just going to do the 25K. I did the 25K last year, which was which was the last race I did before COVID happened. And I just love how that event is so low key, and you see the same folks at that race every year. And, yeah, so I'm excited for that one.
Since I'm a slow runner, I always feel like by the time I'm done, moss is growing out of every pore of me. It's so wet. In January, it's so wet in the Capitol Forest, and the moisture comes from all direction, right? I mean, it's raining and snowing mainly, almost always, and the underbrush is always wet that you're scraping against, and then the endless puddles, like. It is a great way of kicking off the year. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the trails, I don't know if it's the surface, the puddles just kind of stand there in the Capitol Forest. They don't really drain off well. No matter what you do, you can always swim part of the way.
And some parts of that course are kind of clay-like also. It's like really sticky. And really, very slick sometimes too if you're running downhill. I've definitely had to kind of catch myself a couple times, running through there.
Yeah. It's interesting because so many of the races are in the Capitol Forest happen in the wintertime, and when you then go out running Capitol Forest in the summer, you realize how different it is. You sort of think that it's always snowy and wet, but it actually does dry out sometimes in the summer. People don't go in the summer to the Capitol Forest much because, in the summertime the national parks are open, the snow is melting. That's when you go to some real mountains, right?
So true.
So
go
ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm actually going to be down in your neck of the woods this weekend. I'm participating in a gravel bike race that's going to be at the Capitol State Forest. And it's going to be about 60-ish miles with around 7,000 feet of elevation gain.
Yeah.
So it'll be a challenging one for sure, and I'm just hoping it's not going to be too wet, but we'll see.
Nice. Yes, you got quite heavily into gravel riding. Such a fun sport. What kept me always off the bike here in the US. I used to mountain bike quite a bit in Germany, but mainly not like mountain bike the way they mountain bike nowadays with like full suspension bikes that look like motorcycles, more like that. But essentially is now gravel biking, right? I mean, that's what sort of was part of the very early wave of mountain biking. But over here, I've just not enjoyed riding in traffic. I don't enjoy that much. So gravel is nice because you are mainly off the open roads, right?
The main roads, yeah. I mean, it's very cool riding on the gravel bike because, if I'm riding from my house, I'll be on some main roads for like 40 minutes, and then I'll get into our local trail and gravel road system that we've got here in Kitsap County, and it's so nice. I mean, we're so lucky to have it's the Port Gamble Heritage Forest. It's really awesome.
Yeah. Well, and this gravel riding sort of opens up a whole new sort of existing trail network because they are not actual trails. They are roads, forest roads that anyway, they're logging roads that anyway exist, and they feel boring on a mountain bike, and
or running sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. They feel boring running, but they mainly feel boring running because when they're steep and you have to power hike them, then you feel really dumb because you're like, I mean, it's a road. You should be able to move faster.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. I'm always telling folks that, going out into these areas outside of Kitsap County or, the foothills of Quilcene area, kind of even going up into the Olympics on forest roads, it's amazing how just being able to ride in some of these areas has opened up places to adventure that I never would have gone on foot. So it truly expands my playground. It's been pretty incredible, and it's it's given me inspiration to go and run some of these areas too, because, if the trails are just all full of puddles throughout the winter, why not go run through the forest on a gorgeous forest road somewhere, no cars, no people. Yeah, it's super cool.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I like it. At some point, I will have to try. The problem with COVID is that led to insane supply shortages, so you can't get bikes anymore right now.
Yes. Yep, I know. It's been a major issue, and I feel really lucky that a local guy here in Kitsap, he was able to get a bunch of bikes that were being discontinued, or bike frames, and so he builds them out into being gravel bikes. So I just feel so lucky that I was able to get my hands on a nice bike.
You jumped on early. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So really, I mean, we talked about running, we talked about sports, but really the main thing that I actually want to talk to you about is baking. That's the thing that I'm really excited about.
Oh, cool. Well, it's great because it's something I'm excited about too.
Well, exactly. That's my point. So, you love to bake, but you have a little bit of a history because you actually do that tell me a little bit. You do that semi professionally. I mean, you actually know how to bake stuff that people buy. Like I just bake stuff and have my family eat it.
Oh, that's how I got started. So something that some folks may not know about me is that I'm the oldest from a very large family. I'm the oldest of 12 kids.
Oh, wow. That's even more than my wife's family.
So
nice.
Very early on, baking and cooking was introduced to me. So, I was, helping my mom prepare meals, and my brothers were very harsh critics too. It's like, oh, this apple pie is not, we don't like this. So, make it better. I'm like, okay. So, and it's funny getting into baking. I had entered some things into the fair one year, and I think I was probably about 17, almost 18. And I had entered some things in the fair for the first time. And one of the things that I made had won best in class. So I was just like, oh, what?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Nice.
I can't believe that, this one thing that I made was better than everything else. But it just was, it was kind of more than that. It was just kind of this moment of like, oh, I really enjoy doing this, and I think I might actually be good at it. So I think the next year in the summertime, I had entered this, or no, maybe it was that same year. That same year I had entered a 2-week skill center class that was on culinary arts, and it was my first time being in like an industrial type kitchen, and it was amazing, and I really, really enjoyed it. And it just kind of was feeding that idea that maybe, this is what I want to do. And then later, not too long after that, I got my first job at a little bakery in Sequim, which is where I grew up on the Olympic Peninsula. And I worked there for a while, and unfortunately they went out of business because, having a small business in a retirement community is not exactly very kind to them in the winter. Yeah. Everybody leaves. So, anyway, I really enjoyed that. And I've been doing that ever since then, which I guess was like probably, that was 2013 was when I first started working in the food service industry. And, so currently I'm working at a bakery here on Bainbridge Island, and I've been working on and off at different places over the years. And, up until COVID happened, I had been working in a restaurant, which was kind of my first time actually making food and not necessarily just baking. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed that as well. And so, it kind of inspired me to kind of take my home cooking even to another level, like just experimenting more with different spices and flavors and just coming up with different things. And this year we got a CSA, which is basically let's see what it stands for. Community supported agriculture is what it means. And you get like a box of produce or something from a local farm. And so it was really cool over the summer. And we have a few more shares that we're still going to get here into the fall. But you get whatever they're growing. And so it kind of forced me to cook with vegetables or learn to cook certain vegetables that I never would have just gone and purchased at the grocery store. So it's kind of forced me in a good way to be more creative with my cooking. And I think at some point I would like to own my own little restaurant. I envision having just like a little hole in the wall type spot. And I don't know when that will be, but I do know that someday I want that to become a reality. So
that's amazing. I have so many questions about the professional side of baking because I only bake at home. Do you feel you're baking every day the same thing? People come to know a certain taste. Is that hard? I mean, I'm not talking about the repetitiveness, but just I suppose,
I guess,
the consistency, exactly.
It's challenging. It can be challenging, especially when you have, multiple bakers coming in and taking over, excuse me, the shift for like a few days. And, but it's something we all work very hard at trying to maintain, because it's really important. And, customers do have a right, I guess, to some extent to expect the same quality when they come in to get their daily scone or cinnamon roll or whatever. And I think what I've appreciated so much about some of the places that I've worked, including Blackbird, is just how much the owners really care about what they're doing and how much all of my coworkers really care as well. We're putting in so much effort and just our energy into making sure that, everything tastes good and looks good. It's just it's a certain standard of quality that we all try to uphold.
Yeah. Like, I think one of my biggest fears, and I've always said that when people said, whatever you're baking is so great, you should start selling it, is that customers would have different expectation of what a certain product should be like and would slowly change how you are approaching it. Right? I mean, if you like a cinnamon roll with not a lot of frosting on it, but cinnamon rolls sell if they have lots of frosting on it, well, then you have to make the economic decisions to put a crap ton of frosting on it because that's what sells. But you don't like that. And how do you strike that balance? And I'm not suggesting that you struggle with it in any way, but that's how I feel it. That I have certain standards that I'm saying I know how something should taste like. But then if people always come in and say, well, I would buy it, but it has to taste differently, right? Then you have to make
they
that.
can go somewhere else.
I know, right? But if you want your business to succeed, then you sort of have to bend a little bit.
You have to know your clientele.
Yes.
You have to know who's walking through your front door, which, especially for small businesses, that is a huge part of it. And I think if you brand yourself a certain way, the right people will come to you. Yeah. And maybe not. I don't know. I think it is really important, though, to kind of set for yourself an expectation or a standard and then stick to it. And then, I believe that the people that appreciate that will come into would buy that.
Yeah. No.
Exactly. Yeah.
For sure. It's always this challenge that I have. Like, every American thinks that a German pretzel needs to be accompanied by mustard. You're supposed to be serving a pretzel with mustard. Well, that's not a thing in Germany. You don't do that. That doesn't exist, right? You have mustard if you have your pretzel and a sausage, and you have the mustard for the sausage. And sure, if the mustard sits on the plate and you want to dip your pretzel in it, then that's fine, and you do that too. But you don't serve a pretzel with mustard, right? And no, like if I would ever open a restaurant or a bakery that serves pretzels, I just wouldn't serve it with mustard. But you already know, right, that every person who comes and orders that pretzel will say, "Where's my mustard?" And you're like, "I can't serve you mustard. I can't do
funny.
this."
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
see, those are the
Well-
things that keep me awake at night.
Oh my gosh.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
That's so funny though, because literally the other day I went to the Finn River Cidery in Chimacum and I ordered a soft pretzel and it was served with mustard.
You see?
And I've never really been like a huge mustard fan, but I dipped my pretzel in the mustard. I'm so sorry.
No, you see, this is the point. I don't mind if you do it. And I don't mind that you, as a customer, have the expectation. But I still wouldn't give it to you if I would, I mean, I would.
Oh, no, I totally love soft pretzels just as they are. I considered telling them, just hold the mustard. I don't need it.
Exactly. I mean, perhaps some butter with it. If the pretzel is warm, it's the best.
Soft pretzels are pretty amazing.
I'm still on the hunt to bake the perfect pretzel. And at home, I've been baking pretzels now for 15 years and tried every single recipe and try. Well, the difficult thing is getting the lye bath correctly, because you have to dip them in lye before you bake them, which is a big trick part. So, but enough about me and my pretzels. So
that's fine.
I guess two questions for you. One is, if you sit in a commercial kitchen and you get to this essay of a couple things that you would want to bake to sell, what would they be, A? And B, what do you bake at home that, you've got a family? I've enjoyed introducing through baking sort of a tradition, right? You bake certain things and your family gets to know this and they become part of what your family eats and enjoys. And so what do you bake at home that is that you love, and what do you bake in a restaurant that you feel like that's the one that I'm putting out and selling, that is you?
Oh, that's a tough question.
Right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll just say that I've found that the times that I'm working in the kitchen more, my motivation to bake or cook at home, mostly baking at home, is definitely much, much lower. So when I am busy at the kitchen and I do come home and want to bake something for me that I really enjoy, it's simple. It's just pie.
Yeah.
I honestly just really love a good apple pie. And I feel like I don't see a lot of apple pie or eat a lot of apple pies that have a lot of cinnamon. And that is something I love, is a lot of cinnamon. A little bit of salt, a little bit of lemon juice, maybe some lemon zest, and just the smallest amount of some nutmeg is what I like in my apple pie.
I like it. Well, you say it's simple, but pie crust is not that simple. Like, I mean, if you have it down to science, then you might consider it easy. But
it's all in just not over mixing it.
I know.
That's the number one thing. And I've found over the years just some ways to make it a little bit easier is like, if you use a food processor to just combine your dry ingredients and your butter.
That way you're not warming up the butter too much with your hands, right?
Exactly.
I like it. So the pie you make at home, if you would have a signature on a baked good in a restaurant, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, this question might require a little bit more thought.
That's fine.
Yeah, let's see.
Here's one thing.
What's something you would do?
Well, I mean, the pretzels, of course, is for me, right? I mean, and to perfect pretzels in a way, the way they sell in Germany, that you bake them 3 times a day. So as people go home from work, they can stop at 4 or 5 o'clock by your bakery, and they have fresh, warm pretzels that they can take home. Right? So you're not like looking at just bakeries often, especially French bakeries, who favor a lot of flaky croissant type pastries. If you go in after 1 o'clock, it becomes really slim pickings, and I understand. A croissant doesn't last all day on the shelf. It doesn't taste good at 4 o'clock anymore, right? But in German bakeries, they often, which the French do this with spaghetti. You can go into a French bakery at 5 in the afternoon, and you pick up fresh spaghetti that they're baking on a second wave for your evening dinner, right? And so for me, the signature, I would definitely do the pretzel, and I would try to perfect that. And I mean, I love bread, and I love enriched doughs. I love anything that uses the basic of a bread-like dough, but then adds milk and butter and eggs to make it richer and stuff. Yeah. And I think you can do
me too.
You can do so much amazing stuff with that type of dough, with the type of bread. So those would be probably my things.
All right. Yeah. I think I've thought about it a little bit. There are a couple of things that I would do. Is like a little mini strawberry rhubarb pie.
Okay.
Those, I feel like you don't see that around a lot, mostly because strawberries and rhubarb are not in season year round. I think the reason that question is so hard for me is because I guess I've kind of gotten used to kind of seasonal baking, using ingredients or fruits, that are in season. But I think a good fruit flavored scone, like a scone with like maybe a little bit of lavender and raspberry, is something that I'm more recently made. And I was like, okay, this is absolutely amazing, with a little bit of a lemon glaze or something on top. Yes. Something a little more unique.
I like it. For the holidays, do you have special things you bake? Like for Germans, the German Christmas cookies is very, very important. We don't really eat cookies year round that we make, but we have a whole slew, like 20, 30 different varieties. I mean, we don't bake them all, but we have certain specific cookies. So I always get, and they're always very, because, fresh fruit or anything is out of season, they get then heavily flavored with spices that you would expect to find in sort of Christmas cookies. So I have a whole set of Christmas cookies that I bake. Nice. And I always get sad when people say, oh, I made some Christmas cookies and I made some chocolate chip cookies. I'm like, those are the Christmas cookies? I mean, I'm fine if you eat a chocolate chip cookie during the Christmas time, but that's not a Christmas cookie. That's just a year-round cookie that you eat during the holidays. That doesn't count.
That's so funny. Yeah, I like a good cinnamon swirl bread. Like it is like more enriched dough with like eggs and the milk, and kind of make it almost as if you're going to do a cinnamon roll, but let it rise in a loaf pan, and that's so yummy in the winter time. I think it's quite tasty.
Oh yes, very much so. That sounds amazing. Okay, wow. I'm really hungry now. I'm torn. Do I eat and bake, or do I go out on a run? I feel challenged.
You can do both.
I can do both. One after the other. This is the challenge of my life, and the challenge of this podcast, that I don't know what I love more. But it speaks to your off-season comment at the beginning of the show, and it speaks to the beauty of the seasonality. I mean, it's healthy to get all the rain gear on and go out no matter what time and stuff. But it's also good to allow ourselves to let the seasons affect us, and say, okay, during the summer, I want to live on a mountain and I want to nonstop run up and down mountain passes. But in the winter, I'm like, I'm not a winter sport person. I don't ski or anything. So I'm okay with
Hmm.
hibernating a little bit. I'm okay with
Yeah.
sort of stepping back and focusing more on sort of indoor activities.
Hmm.
Strava disagrees with me. I can't really track my baked good baking, but I feel like it's healthy.
Oh, absolutely. Give your body a little bit of a break from, all the incredible adventures, you're able to do the rest of the year. And I'm hoping to get into maybe a little bit of skiing this winter, but we'll see.
Yeah,
Definitely going to be doing a lot more yoga in the month of December.
nice. I think it also helps with sort of fanning the flame and starting to let you dream again, right?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
being able to sit back and sort of start thinking about what's out there.
Hmm.
Um, any plans for the coming year? Anything that's already fixed for you that you're going to be working towards?
It's funny. I'm not the type of person that signs up for races like way in advance. So it's always kind of hard when, there are certain races where I'm like, oh, I guess I'd better sign up for this sooner than later because it's going to sell out. I guess that's kind of made planning for races a little bit, excuse me, a little bit more challenging just because I guess I like to have a little bit more spontaneity when I sign up for a race. Kind of just see what pops up, and
Yeah.
maybe it's somewhere I've never run before. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of still trying to figure that out. I think I would like to do Needles 50K again next year. And then there was a race that I wanted to do a couple years ago, but I was just coming off of an injury, and that's the Olympic Mountains 50K.
Mhm.
Um, there's a gravel race in Steamboat, Colorado that I'd really like to go and participate in. And I'm actually signed up for a gravel race that's down in Oregon also. It's a Gorge Gravel Grinder. So I'm going to be going back to that one. I did it this year. Um, yeah, so I'm just kind of just playing it by ear. I'm going to be at the Capitol Peak 25K. Um, so yeah, just kind of seeing what pops up on the race calendar, or yeah, and just seeing, what my availability is like. It's kind of been rough the last, couple years, just trying to go to more competitive races, but you know, it can be a little cost prohibitive to travel sometimes, and so trying to factor that in as well, and
Yeah.
yeah, just see what works for our budget.
We didn't talk about this at all, but I'm surprised how relaxed you are about this. I mean, being relaxed is great, but because you and your husband both race and
Hmm.
there is a lot of juggling going on
Hmm.
in figuring out who gets priority and precedent to run this race and how it fits with training. Do you want to speak to that a little bit in terms of, because some people could be very type A both, that you
Hmm.
make a master plan for the year and saying, okay,
Yeah.
you get to race this race, therefore you need this training block, and I'm sitting back with the kid, and then I
Mm.
get to race or something. But you expressing this very relaxed and fluid, and I find that great, but I'm curious how you manage this with the family both racing.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, obviously, Keith kind of comes up with the races that he wants to do, and we talk about it, like what will work with our schedule, and if we happen to have a race that's the same weekend or something, but maybe in different locations that we're both and we're both interested in racing that weekend, we figure out childcare as needed. I'm grateful that Keith's mom lives in the area and my family is also close by. We're extremely fortunate for that. I know it's tough for other families when they don't have relatives like grandparents close by to help. So yeah, we just kind of just communicate a lot about, what races we want to do. And, maybe if it's like a higher priority race, one of us will choose that time to, you know, if it'll require, excuse me, a lot more training and time involved for that, you know, we'll try to offset it. Like, okay, I won't choose a race in that same time frame, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess I feel like I maybe used to be a little bit more, I don't know, rigid or just not rigid, but just kind of trying to come up with a more solid plan. Like, okay, these are all the races I'm going to do this year. I kind of like to take some of that pressure off myself and just see what comes up. And, you know, if it excites me, I'm going to do it rather than forcing myself to go do. It's like, I don't know, it just kind of takes the joy out of it for me. And like, oh, I should be doing this race because it's like a more competitive or high profile race or something. I really just enjoy running just for the sake of it. And, you know, I also obviously enjoy being competitive and trying to get the best out of myself on the day of a race. So, I just try to have a little bit more of a relaxed approach, I guess.
I love this. This is, I think, a great way of putting a button on all of this. Tell us and our listeners where they can connect with you online, if you want to be connected to. Perhaps you want to be secretive. No.
Oh, it's whatever. I'm on Strava. You can just look me up by my name, Elisa Laverty, and I'm on Instagram. Not really on Twitter, not really on Facebook. So yeah, on Instagram, my handle is at Mountain Trailbird. So it's MNTNTRAILBIRD. Mountain Trailbird.
Fantastic. I love it. Cool. We have links to all of this in the show notes. Elisa, thank you so much for coming on Single Track. This was a fun show. Now I want an apple pie with cinnamon in it.
Yes. Now I want to go bake something. I have the day off, so this is my chance to get any baking done if I want to. So thanks for the little inspiration push.
Thanks for tuning in this week. This is Matthias Eichler, hoping the holidays aren't too crazy for you and you get some time to breathe and celebrate.